I'm Shaggy, I am Philolitea, and I am just getting upright for the day. I slept in my scarves because it's cold, y'all. Also, I'm kind of lazy. And in that way, that actually leads me directly into what I want to talk about today. Well, what I want to talk about for now, what I was thinking about before I decided to go live. And it's strange to me that I have 80 subs. It's strange that I have 80 subs. You gotta you gotta remember emphasis. I gotta remember emphasis. But you gotta also remember creatively. If I'm trying to teach you to be a better public speaker or a better creative, because if, as I wrote in the journal, I got so good at being in the audience that now I'm turning around to get on stage to tell you how to be a better audience. And if that's what my art is teaching you how to be a better audience. It's strange to me that I have 80 followers, and yet nobody nobody is keeping an eye out for my work. Like when I go live, nobody keeps an eye out for these. Now I don't schedule them because I have massive anxiety around schedules. I'm doing and thinking about a lot of things, and schedules and scheduling and responsibility on that level has been a source of terror for me my whole life. Now, terror is not fear. Terror is a constant, unsolvable problem. And I've lived without vehicle independence my whole life. My whole life, I have required rides to get around. And now there's a certain amount of, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, just buy a car. And it's like, well, I had a car. I had a car in 2020 because my life fell apart at the end of 2018, and I did my best to fake it for society. When you say get a job and re-enter society, what you mean is get a job and fake that you don't hate this civilization that we have created as much as all of us do. Fake it till you make it. Was a topic my last ex-girlfriend wanted me to talk about at length, but she wouldn't watch my work. So if I did, she wouldn't know. So I didn't. And this isn't about that. I know what's going on with the 80 of you that aren't going to watch this. But I know what's going on. I know what you're doing. You're telling yourself that you're going to binge my material. You're telling yourself that, well, he's so prolific, eventually he'll talk about something, or he'll make a title, or he'll make a thumbnail that catches my attention. But because you're not watching my work, because you're not listening to me, because you're not paying adequate attention, you don't know that I am deliberately not doing that. If I caught your attention enough to get a sub, then I've got your attention. The shorts, when they show up in your feed, and especially on mobile, They don't have titles. It's just my face. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put the clickbaity subtitles in there to trick you into watching my work. I refuse. I will not. I have dignity, but more importantly, I have something that in the last 50 years has been attacked and destroyed in the popular conception, and that's I have artistic integrity. And see, integrity is on this same thing. The people who used to argue from an artistic integrity standpoint have been shouted down by pragmatic, business-minded people who have claimed to be artists but have in fact just used art as a production line to factory generate material that you call content, and they've destroyed art. Music is just quantized bullshit now. The people who make it are low skill hacks with very little integrity, and because they're low skill and have low integrity, they're exploited. The women sexually, the men financially. Nothing's really changed since the 70s. Once a record producer, once a record company figured out that they didn't actually have to pay the artists their royalties, and that most of the artists, because they didn't have the royalties, also thought they couldn't sue because they thought they couldn't afford a lawyer because they were poor, because artists, true artists, are not rich. They do not have independent wealth before they begin their art as a career, as a profession. But see, I don't want to talk about, and I don't want to criticize your confusion of wealth with righteousness. Because as secular arguments go, it seems to be the most obvious, the most self-evident case that, well, rich people must have some kind of virtue. Look at all the money they've got. But it's naive to think that. It's naive to think that. This is why I yell at you, the lowest common denominator, about your bad habits, your bad social habits. Somebody drops something, somebody that's differently abled than you, somebody who has difficulty bending to the ground to pick things up at their feet, drops something. What do? Do you offer to help them? Do you move to pick it up and then allow them the independence to solve their own problems? Or do you just pretend it didn't fall and stand there so that when they bend over, they also have to put their face in your crotch? What do? Are you aware that your crotch is there? Are you aware that you're humiliating them by making them do that? Are you even aware? Like, do you even think about these things? And so let me ask you, do you think that rich people are more aware, naturally more aware of their environment and of helping people because they're rich? If we go through all of the virtues, do we think that rich people naturally have virtue just because they're rich? Do we think that their riches feedback loop them to do good things for the people around them? So if you, poor person, were to drop something in the presence of a rich person, is that rich person going to jump to pick it up for you and hand it to you? Are they going to jump to an act of service as an apology that they have things and they have access that you don't have? No, of course not. In fact, what they're going to do is they're going to actually make it inconvenient for you so that they're going to move closer to the problem so that you have to step away from the problem to actively put your face in their crotch. That's what's going to happen. That's what always happens. And so it's strange to me that I have 80 followers. And while I was doing that, I had somebody live. And let me tell you, these randos that are going to come through my feed, they're not going to enjoy me talking about rich people. They're just not. And so really what I need to do, the way these would be the most best is if I just made it so, if I blinded myself so that I couldn't even see when people are here. And so I know that you're waiting on me to have bingeable material. And I know you're waiting on me to have a title that catches your attention, or a thumbnail that catches your attention. And I'm deliberately not doing those things. I'm not doing those things to defy you to engage with my work because you chose to engage with someone who has deliberately put himself in the public eye as a cultist of personality, deliberately and on purpose. I am a performative artist. And so I'm deliberately critiquing YouTube by not doing thumbnails, and by not doing good titles, and by going live inside a tent to talk to no one, and by deliberately ignoring when I have people live with me, and by talking about big and difficult and self-critical topics that are going to make you feel self-critical, make you feel like I'm coming at you personally. And I'm going to do that on purpose because I keep telling you this. I keep telling you, and you keep not listening, and you keep getting upset, and you keep lashing out, and you think that it hurts my feelings. And what it doesn't do is it doesn't hurt my feelings, and it's not going to make me stop. Because now I'm at what I want to talk about. And that is the fallacy of the pen being mightier than the sword. Is the pen actually mightier than the sword? And so, what I'm thinking about is how you get in my comments, you get in my comments section, you don't use the remix, and you don't associate your face with it, and you want to write. You want to write these comments, because what you don't think is that text that you've generated on a keyboard or on your phone is written. Because you think that the pen is mightier than the sword, literally. You think that a handwritten letter, a handwritten missive, a handwritten anything has more power, more magic, more might than something generated on a keyboard. And so you don't think, I get into arguments with people on Twitter about this all the time. You don't think that these comments that you put in anyone's comment section, but specifically mine, you don't think these comments are spells. You don't think they're curses. You don't think they're writing. You don't think your tweets are writing. You don't think your Facebook posts are writing. And it's so funny because that means you only think of writing as formal writing. You only think of writing that you only think of anything as writing if you're handing it to an authority figure to be evaluated for whether you belong or not. Do you understand how ass backward that is? There we go. Bass backward that is? Do you not realize how wrong that is on its face? When the idiom, the pen is mightier than the sword, was invented, it was because people writing books were declaring independence from major empires, not nation states, empires, world empires. It's like I got a friend, Mark. He's a Brit, so he's a fucking idiot. And he's from London, so he's borderline mentally retarded. But he's a Christian, and he's a good dude. And I love him. regardless of his intellect, because first of all, love is unconditional. When you choose to love somebody, when you accept that you love somebody, it becomes unconditional at that point. You don't stop loving them. Even my enemies, I don't stop loving my enemies just because they're my enemies. The expression of what love means changes. So anyway, he's got some stupid amount of Twitter followers, but doesn't know that when you have that many followers, you're supposed to publish now. You're supposed to write. When you have plus 5,000 followers on Twitter, you're generating ad revenue. You're allowed to profit share. And so if you're not using that to make connections with major publication industry, with publishers, there we go, publications, if you're not using that to make connections with major international corporations to generate second and third revenue streams, you're living wrong. If you've got more than 5,000 Twitter followers, if you've got more than 500 YouTube followers, and you're not parlaying that to larger publications for extra revenue streams, you are living wrong. You are doing it wrong. I had 2 people watch me say that, and they did not like hearing that. Because the couple $100 that you're going to generate in ad revenue ain't shit. It just ain't shit. And it doesn't mean anything. It most certainly doesn't mean anything about you. The reason there is an interactions threshold is because you have to have a sustainable audience. You have to have a sustainable audience. Okay, well, who else has to have a sustainable... I'm actually going to sit here and change my socks. Who else is required to have a sustainable audience? The already published. The reason... Ooh, I'm actually going to clip my toenails too. And I really shouldn't do this with my gloves on, but my gloves are already disgusting. Actually, I might not be able to clip my toenails. I'm just going to do my socks. You shouldn't do this with gloves on, because now I'm just transferring bacteria everywhere I touch with my gloves, from my feet to my face, my shirt, my everything, everywhere I go. But I see how actually sanitary you fucks are. And I would say approaching 100% of the people... Oh, I'm not even going to be able to get my feet in these socks. These are women's socks. They're going to be way too small. I would say approaching 90% of the people that I see go in and come out of that bathroom in the Panera that I hang out in don't wash their hands. Actually, I would say approaching 100%, but I can't prove that. But if you watch, you don't even have to... You can hear it from where I sit. You can hear the sink. But if you just watch them, they obviously do not take public health and safety very seriously at all. And why would they, after the fiasco that was COVID? Why would they? Why would they take public health and safety seriously? So many people, you can see them. I'll do it deliberately. I worked in the food industry for damn near 20 years. So I'm a compulsive hand washer, but I'll deliberately not wash my hands and then look at people to see what their faces are like. And all of them look at me like, yeah, we used to care, and we know that we're conditioned and supposed to care. We're conditioned to care. We want to care. We're supposed to care, but we don't actually care. Because it's not a real problem. There's not an immediate... Like, nobody is going to get immediately sick because you didn't wash your hands because you peed. And then they also look at me and they go, well, you're homeless. You're just a dirty person. But then I catch them check themselves even thinking that. Because if that were true, that I'm just a dirty person, and that justifies their assumption that, well, I wouldn't wash my hands. Well, what's their excuse? What's the reason? What's the classification into which they fall, where it makes sense that, well, they wouldn't either. They have to think about that. And then they know what it is. The bourgeoisie. They fall into a class of people who have enough wealth to get health care, so that if they did get sick, they could either sue or see a doctor. The two S's that divide the rich from the poor in the United States. If you can see a doctor, one of my favorite Neebs gaming jokes is actually an Apsro and Anthony joke. It's an Anthony and Apsro moment in their Minecraft, the second one, Minecraft in 4K or whatever they called it, during COVID. Ironically enough, they named they made a rich people gated community because they were doing a role play series, or a role play session series where they were playing evil rich guys, evil rich tycoons. And what they chose to name their rich people only gated community is I Can Afford Healthcare in the United States Annex. And it's appropriate. And so if you're not self-aware enough to know that if you can afford healthcare, or you can afford a lawyer to sue to defend yourself against petty grievances, if you're not self-aware enough to know that those two things divide the rich from the poor, you might be too stupid to be allowed to live. You're most certainly too stupid to be allowed to vote, which is why you are weaponized to vote. You're too stupid to be allowed to speak in public. And that gets us to writing. Why is the pen mightier than the sword? Because you put a sword in the hand of an idiot, and he can only kill as many people as he can reach with his hands. Now I'm going to put you in my pocket. You know how this goes at this point if you would watch these. But if you put a pen in the hand of an idiot, and you give him a publishing contract, you can kill an infinite number of people. Not only can you kill an infinite number of people, you can topple an infinite number of governments. Would you like for me to list the governments in the modern era which were toppled because an idiot was given a microphone at the top of their civilization? Because I don't even have to go through the evil ones. I can start by returning to that story about my buddy Mark. Mark asked his Twitter audience, because again, Mark is kind of an idiot, but he has a massive following, whether Britain was a failed state. Now, I didn't get involved in the poll because I don't get on Twitter except once a day to see what dumb shit he's said and whether it pisses me off so bad I want to hit him in the head with something. If it doesn't, I doom scroll until it does, which only takes a few seconds, really. I mean, it only takes me maybe 60 seconds to be absolutely finished with Twitter. Oh, is my battery dying, or did I just... Okay, good. But he asked whether Britain was a failed state, and I saw that late, and so I quote tweeted it off, and I said, Britain is not a failed state. Britain has not existed as a state since the conclusion of World War II. the British crown and the nobility which owned it wanted so badly to own the trade routes to Asia through the Mediterranean, and I think that's the Black Sea. Maybe it's the Baltic. I don't know. They so badly wanted Constantinople because they so badly wanted to win the Crusades fucking something like 500 years after they had concluded, because Muslims are idiots. And Muslims are annoying about how stupid they are. They won't let that war die because they can't accept that they've lost. Because they came to the liberal worldview, they were introduced to the liberal worldview after the collapse of the British Empire. And so now we could go through all those Middle Eastern states that have failed and been toppled because the people that they put at the top of their government were idiots with microphones. We're not going to, because we don't have to. And that would take a long time. And that's not what I want to talk about. The pen being mightier than the sword. And text, comments, typed messages not being as meaningful, as powerful as handwritten. And you know, it's interesting because if you actually believed what you assume, because assuming a truth and believing it aren't the same thing, not even close. Having an unquestioned bias and having a deeply reasoned belief are wildly different things. Wildly different things. Ask Martin Luther, the elder, not Martin Luther King. Ask Martin Luther. Faith must trample underfoot all reason, which even means belief. Faith must trample underfoot all dogma, all bias. And that means being there. And so what I'm telling you is, it's strange to me that 80 of you follow me, 80 of you sub, but none of you have faith. None of you has faith in me. It's weird to me. Why follow? What was the point? And so I understand that you're waiting to binge, but you're never going to do it. So I don't know why you live like that, with this ever-growing list of things that you're committing to do that you're just never going to commit to. I don't know why you live like that. I don't know if it's that you don't know that you're doing it, that you're just unaware, that you're giving yourself this ever-increasing, infinitely long to-do list of things that, while you had some intention, maybe even great good intentions, you don't now. And so it's strange to me that you don't take the opportunity to learn from me. It's strange to me that you don't take the opportunity to be inspired. It's strange to me that you don't watch my work and understand what I'm doing and think, oh man, you know, I thought about doing that during COVID, or, you know, I thought about doing that last time I was depressed, or, you know, I thought about, so many of you come to me and say, oh, I was homeless, X, Y, and Z, and it never occurred to any of you to do this? It never occurred to any of you. Why? Why not? All you do when you're homeless and unemployed is sit around, talk, fuck off on Facebook and Twitter, writing. So why not be creative? And then why not parlay all of that sympathy that you get, all of those sympathy follows that you get, all of that sympathy engagement that you get, why not parlay it into a career? Why not parlay it into a living? Why do you feel so guilty and shameful about this? We are a social species. We are a communicating species. This self-isolation that you put yourself through, not listening to people like you speak, not listening to people below you speak up to you about how bad you're treating them. You understand that that's totalitarian tyranny, and you're not a fucking king. You're imitating a lifestyle that you neither understand nor can afford. You're doing yourself harm. You're holding yourself back. I'm gonna put you like this for a while. No, I'm not either. It won't let me. I'm gonna put you in my pocket. But the pen is in fact not mightier than the sword, not literally. Figuratively, and we could have an interesting performative debate that would come down a wash, maybe 60-40 one side or the other, if you did that thing where you actually have people vote before and then vote after. You might get as much as 10% change their mind, but only because they liked the speaker. That's how debate works. Debate is not real policy making. It's not real. That's not how the peer review process works. For instance, debate is not how the peer review process works. The peer review process is a written, and it can be oral, but it's not debate. It's not taking turns. It's not fair. And it's most certainly not sport. You see, debate is the intellectual equivalent to sport, because intellects can't run around. Intellects can't run around, and we can't lift heavy weights, and we can't beat one another up, and we can't tame lions and have them do things. But what we can do is we can argue, and we can be petty, and we can be demonstrative in our intelligence. And that's entertaining to other people who identify as intelligent, regardless of whether they are or they are not. God damn it. It's just cold enough that my lighter won't both light and stay lit. So what I'm working toward is the comments. You know, I'm inviting you to write in the comments. I'm inviting you to be intelligent in the comments. I'm inviting you to a dialogue with an extremely intelligent person. We would have to define intelligent for you to agree with me, and I'm just not going to do that. And I don't really care whether you agree with me or not, frankly, that I'm intelligent. But if you had learned from school, and if you had learned from sport, and see, you don't have to learn from sport if you to go, well, I just don't like sport. No, I just don't like competition. I just don't like it. Okay, well, how do you know if you measure up? Because you're never going to just not be able to compete. It's like I've got this friend who wants to get into IT. He's never had a job, doesn't have any education. He's a stay-at-home dad and a made man, and that's fine. That's fine. He lives close to his family, and his family support him financially and with food when he needs it, and that's fine. You're allowed to do that without being shamed by anyone. But he's also trying to teach himself how to program and how to code. And it's like, okay, well, as soon as you try to parlay that into a job and you go to a job interview, you're auditioning. You're competing with other people who also want that job. Now that you've got that job, you're competing to keep it. You're doing sport now. You're doing sport IT. And so if you didn't learn from the lessons, the teaching moments, the learning moments in your life up to the point that you are right now in your life. It doesn't matter whether you're 13 or whether you're 335. If you didn't learn from everything that's come before the moment right here with me, that's on you. And here's your chance to change. Here's your moment. This could be your inciting moment. You don't even know it. It's like that book that A.J. Brown is reading, and everybody's making a big deal about how A.J. Brown is reading this self-help book on the sidelines, and it increased in sales by like 8 million%. People want self-help. They want to know, but they go to these rich people that have virtue. But where do they go? They don't go to their private podcast. They don't go to where they are at. They go to their book. Why? Because their book is frozen in time. But also why? Because the book is magic. All of those things in the book are spells. And so when I talk about books and I talk about my writing and I talk about all this, I'm talking about magic. But you see it as withholding. You really do. I know even some of you are like, well, I'm just waiting on him to finish a book. I'm waiting on him to finish reading a book. And it's like, I keep telling you. I'm not going to finish any of these projects. I'm just not. I'm too influenced by too many successful people. I've learned lessons, too many lessons. For instance, let me give you the same example I always give, but I never finish the story because I know that you're just not going to care. It's not going to be meaningful to you because you don't know to search for meaning. You don't know that that's why the meaning of life is to search for the meaning. Your meaning was yours. You were born for a reason. You chose to stay alive this whole time for a reason. You chose to develop all of the skills that you have developed for a reason. Are you using them? Why are you not using them? It's like millennials bitching about how they're not working in the field that they were educated in, that the school didn't also give them a job. And it's like, the school doesn't have to give you a job. Even if the school promised you a job, you're an idiot for believing them. Like, if you believe that your credit card company wasn't ultimately going to rip you off, you're an idiot for believing them. They're a for-profit organization. And so anyway, Neebs. It's a Neebs gaming story, and it's a thick 44 story of how I honor my heroes, and he is one of my fallen heroes. When Neebs and Duralius did their Fallout 4 or Fallout 5, I think it might have been 6. I don't know them. I haven't played the Fallout series. I've played one of the games. I didn't really like it. I think it was 3. Anyway, the one in the United States. When they played that, they wanted to do they were doing a documentary style Let's Play because it's a very narrative oriented game. And so they were going to be railroaded through elements of the game that they had no choice but to watch. And so what they wanted to do was they wanted to kind of take the piss out of doing that, being forced to sit and watch this game. And people didn't get it. They just didn't get it. And so Thick made them stop. He made them stop shooting it after 4 or 5, maybe even fewer episodes than that, because they weren't getting views. It wasn't generating revenue. And if it's not generating revenue, then it's a waste of time, because time is money. And so every minute you invest in a project that's not giving you money back is time sunk. It's money sunk. It's just a pit that you're throwing your life in. And what are you getting out of that pit? Nothing at all. And so like Oak Island, like, how have we not learned the lesson from Oak Island that you don't just dig a vertical shaft to nowhere? It just doesn't get you anything. So if I'm reading these books and I'm not generating any interest, I'm not even generating one consistent viewer, I'm not going to finish. There's no point. It's just sunk time. It's wasted time, which is wasted money. And I'm just not going to do it. It's not worth it to me. Not when I can sit and I can play video games, I can play these mobile games, and I can generate the money that I need. Day to day, moment to moment. Not when I know that the only comments I'm going to get, the only written messages I'm going to receive, the only communication I'm going to receive from the wider world is hate. And see, all of that hate is curses. You don't understand. That's why I delete them. Because if they sit there into perpetuity, they get to do their work. That's why the pen is more powerful. Because idiots, assholes, the evil, the demon possessed are going to see that they're going to see all that hate, and they're going to see that my community isn't defending me from it, and they're going to see me as a victim. They're going to see me as someone they can victimize. They're going to see me as someone who won't defend himself. This is why whenever I get these negative comments, I'll fucking make a video with your name on it, and I'll title it with your fucking name. Why? Because what you think you're doing is getting away with an evil that no one is going to see you doing. This is why they don't defend themselves in the comments of those. When I come directly at them, they don't defend themselves. Why? Because they're unprepared to defend themselves. Because they can't defend themselves. Because they actually aren't prepared to use their pen as a sword. Well, I am, folks. I am. Yeah. I'm going to use my voice as a sword. Jesus said that he wasn't coming to bring peace. He was coming to bring destruction. That he was bringing a flaming sword of fire with his mouth. And that it was going to cleanse the world. Perdition. Well, here I am, folks. Here I am. You don't have to believe. So many people tell me, well, you're not Jesus. Well, obviously I'm not Jesus. My name is Vincent. But if I'm the only person who understood the message, and I'm the only person who's going to stand up and repeat it properly, and I'm the only person who's going to live it the way that it was commanded, yeah, that makes me more like Jesus than you. Which means that I get to demand what Jesus demanded of you from you. Because I wouldn't ask you to do anything that I can't do. I wouldn't ask you to do anything that I wouldn't ask of myself. Because I'm not a bad leader. I'm not you. It's like I listen to parents just bully their kids all day long because you can't rationalize with a 2-year-old. You can't convince a 2-year-old to volunteer to be a part of the team that is the family unless mom and dad are already a perfectly well-oiled machine. Unless the child is hearing the same messaging from mother and father at every turn, what the child is going to do is a reverse parent trap. The child is going to naturally divide the parents to get what the child wants, and the child is always going to get what the child wants. This is why every child comes to the conclusion that the reason their parents are getting divorced is because they were shitty kids. And yeah, the reason your parents are getting divorced is because you were a shitty kid. I mean that. My siblings were shitty kids, and it definitely drove a wedge between my parents. Now, my parents hated each other before I was born, but my younger siblings accelerated the divorce. Because what little kid, once they realize they can get 2 Christmases, because it's on TV now, what little kid, once they realize they can get 2 Christmases, they might even be able to get 4 Christmases, isn't going to do that. Isn't going to do what they have to do to make that happen. Especially if that little kid isn't getting the messaging that what you need to do is volunteer for the best of the family. All right, my arm is getting tired. My arms are getting tired, and this is starting to look and feel stupid holding this phone like this at this bus stop. It's the vertical or the horizontal. I'm obviously filming myself. When I'm holding it vertical, I can pretend I'm not, but I am obviously filming myself. But what people don't need to know is, and what they should immediately think is, well, he might actually be in a job interview. You don't know that I'm not working, and that's the thing. This is work. It's time spent. It's time spent. And because it's time spent, I deserve your time spent. I'm giving you mine. I deserve yours. Especially if you've already seen something that interests you in me, I deserve that second look. That second look is called respect. I give you a second look by reading your comments and responding to them, making videos around them. I give you that respect. I deserve the respect. So the pen, is the pen really mightier than the sword? Tell me in the comments. If you made it to 44 minutes and 43 seconds, tell me in the comments. Is the pen mightier than the sword? And is digital text text? Is it writing? When you write a comment, are you writing? Are you doing the same thing that the authors of the Declaration of Independence did? This is why I was talking about Britain, and here comes my bus. This is why I introduced Britain. Britain was so bad, behaved so much like you at every level, that our ancestors said, enough is enough. And for the first time in history, they were so enlightened and so educated and so intelligent, they didn't do it with swords. They did it with the pen. They sent good old King George, or whatever his name was, a letter, and they said, hey, get fucked, old boy. And so what I'm telling you now, get fucked, old boys.